Welcome back, guys. It's your boy the Ace, back at it with another C2. Just can't get enough of it. This time with thanks to a HT Plus member. They recommended me to review Mythic. Now, this is the heavily Greek mythological based naming structured C2 framework, and this one has really impressed me even just from the documentation. Mythic is a multiplayer command and control tailored framework for sophisticated, and I will underline that, red teaming operations. It's modular in nature, which makes the design allow for real-time integration of agents, communication channels, custom modifications, and so much more. In essence, I see Mythic as a bridge between cyber operations and their targets, and offering streamlined, efficient, and adaptable operation systems in certain environments. Now, let's look at the backbone of this beast. So, under the hood, Mythic employs a blend of multiple modern technologies. Now, for front-end flavoring, they are using React, and you will see that from the website interface. On the back end, however, it leverages Docker and Docker containers. Now, this ensures not only the compartmentalization of code and scalability, but also makes deployment very fast and modular. It also has a Golang server which manages the web requests, interfacing with the PostgreSQL database and other containers through what you will see is a RabbitMQ. Now, this modular setup means that components can be distributed as and when required, whether they are on a VPS, a locally hosted machine, or some sort of development environment. Now, two big things when it comes to playing with Mythic are payloads and payload types and C2 profiles. The agents within Mythic host or distribute these payloads. Now, you can imagine payloads as special agents, as you will, and they are a variety of software developed entities that can operate either on a target machine, or you can probe them for commands that you issue from a central station. Now, to access them, and I will show you this within the lab demo, we will go into the C2 profile section under profile types, and there's a headphone section where you can find all this. Now, this leads me on to the C2 profiles themselves. Now, C2 profiles within Mythic are the lifeblood of communication. Now, these dictate how the agents themselves operate on said systems and communicate like a client server situation, with them reporting back to the Mythic server. Now, each C2 has two key components here. Now, we got the server code itself and the agent code. Now, one resides within a Docker container, whereas the other operates on the target machine. Right, now if we lab this up, we can see how we can install Mythic in its first instance, and we can see if we can get an agent on a Windows machine and how that goes. By this time, you know what the Ace does and how we run, so let's get started. So if we go to the GitHub repo for Mythic, now this is by Cody Thomas under It's a Feature, along with 16 contributors, and the community is going strong here, which I love to see. Now, I've kind of given you a brief overview already of what Mythic is and how this is running, but if you want to install Mythic with the installation, we can go into the heavily documented docs.mythic-c2.net, and we can see the installation section here. Now, if we go to the Git repo and we just grab the code, we run the usual git and install this bad boy. So you would just grab that and cd into said destination, and then you just run a git clone and you grab Mythic. Now once we've done that, we can cd into Mythic and get started. Now if we ls into this, you're going to find a lot of folders and files. Do not be intimidated at this stage, it's just quite comprehensive. Now what you're going to want to do is be familiar with first this command under the Mythic CLI. But before you do that, you're going to first want to generate the binary out of this folder using the sudo make. Now once you run that, then you can get started using this CLI command. Now if you run that sudo make and we make it, now this will make all the dependencies required to begin stage 2 of this operation. Once the make binary has unpacked itself, you can ls into the directory and find this Mythic CLI command. Now this CLI command is not only critical for running the Mythic containers, but also bringing up the necessary resources required to start the processes. There are various commands in terms of using the Mythic-CLI. You have the CLI server, CLI status, CLI start, CLI update, etc. We'll go through some of them in due course. One critical point I have to underline that was producing so many errors for me was the Docker situation. Now, as mentioned previously, Docker runs within Mythic, and that's for good reason. But what wasn't explained really was how to install Docker. Now I'm using Kali Linux here. I will leave a link to description here because this one really did help me out and save me in some instances. I had to install all of this. I didn't just install just the top section for this install via Docker IO. I had to install all of this. And there was one particular command that wasn't described to me, which was the systemctl space start space docker. Now this command, once everything else was done here, actually started the Docker instance and then allowed Mythic to install and start the Docker instances required for its full installation. I'll leave a link in the description below and also have a flash up on screen now. Let's start Mythic now and see how that runs. Now that literally took quite a while, and the reason the start process took so long was, first of all, I had to initialize everything in terms of all the containers, but also you will see here the container names that I have under the profiles and agents are also installed. Now I have here, and I'll show you how to install one, but you can install them all if you want. I have Apollo, Athena, Discord, Dynamic HTTP, Freya, HTTP, Leviathan, Medusa, Merlin, WebSocket, and so on. So I have all of that to hand. Here you can see what is up and running in terms of documentation, Graph, Jupyter, Nginx, Rabbit, etc. If you want to now access the web UI, you'd have to grab this URL here under the local loopback address under this 7443 port. Now if we just copy that link, bring that up, and now we're in Mythic here. Now just for namesake here, we have, this is what the splash page will look like if you first logging onto it, but you might ask yourself, where do you get these details from for the login in the first place? What you will see here, if you press ls under here or ls-all, you'll find some hidden files here, and one of them is this environment variable file. If you were to cat this environment file out, what you will see is the environment globally
for the Mythic C2. Now within here you're going to find all the necessary code for this particular environment that's been spun up, and in here you will find the admin username and password. Although it's not stacked in the same order, it's somewhere in here. If we'll just quickly just try and find it for you. Now here you can see the Mythic admin user, which will be this username for this instance, and then here on top of that you will find the Mythic password. Now you need these two to log into that web UI. Now once you grab those two and then you log in, now you are welcomed to the web UI for Mythic, which is very clean and it looks very nice. Now you have this hamburger menu on the left, and there's also a dark mode feature if that's your quirk. Now if we go to services, we can see Jupyter Notebook, we have the GraphQL console, consuming services, we also have a create, which we create payload or wrapper, and we have operational config for agents and C2s. This is the headphones icon I mentioned. That'd be your main port of call most of the times. Now we have these two columns. One are payloads, which I referred to earlier in the video, and next we have C2 profiles. Now each payload is unique and very highly documented. Some are even frameworks in themselves, for instance Merlin. Now some are showing online, some are showing offline. Reason being, they need the profiles according to the payloads that can run on them, and you can start the profiles as and when you wish. Now if you were to click this book icon under Apollo, for example, now within here you have all the documentation for that agent, and you're looking at a lot of reading. There is a hell of a lot of documentation, which is why I have to rate this. I rate it a lot. Now for the documentation, you might get lost in it, but take it in bits. Don't try to absorb it all, because each agent's going to be different and each agent use case is going to be different, and the same goes for the profiles as well. Now here we have this hazard icon, which would be the payloads themselves. You have search operation. We've got this clipboard for any files that have been uncovered. Next we have any artifacts, same for that. We have the proxies, any screenshots taken, credentials that have been snapped up. We've got any active callbacks, which will be deployed on any machines that we want to have an agent on. Next we have any reporting as well, so it's going to generate reports for you, which is amazing. We have the MITRE framework, which I mentioned, which is kind of an industry standard in terms of red teaming. We've got the reconnaissance all the way moving to lateral movement. Next we have operational tags and Operation Chimera, which you have to love, of course. Now let's kind of get started and create a payload. Now, of course, you can generate a wrapper payload. You can import payload configurations if you can find them online, and you can also show a list of previously deleted payloads. So very well documented and transparent in terms of what's being done on the framework. Now if we generate a payload, you have a target type here. So you can target Chrome specifically, Linux, Red Hat flavor of Linux, Windows, FreeBDS, Mac, OpenBDS and Solaris. So in this case we target a Windows operating system. Next we have the target payload type. Now I mentioned this earlier, we've installed many, but when you start you will have nothing here. Now how you install these payloads, I'll put a link in the description below where they're all currently hosted. They're in GitHub under Mythic agents. Now here all the Mythic agents available, And for me, more green ticks the better, which is why Medusa and Merlin are kind of standing out, as well as Athena. These are kind of the OP situations at the minute. And if you want to install these, you would just simply click on Athena, for example. And you would grab this Athena URL, copy that, and then also just append it to this command right here. So you do the sudo.mythiccli install GitHub, and then from GitHub just paste the URL up here for the given profile or agents, and then off you go. That will simply just install and you'll have the agent eventually. You might need to restart the Mythic server, so just Mythic CLI start or restart or stop and restart, but that's it, you're done with that one. Back to this. So for this example, we can select Apollo, which was here was Apollo, and we can see Apollo has all these contributors. Like I mentioned, the agents have their own kind of community being worked on, so the agents themselves have a whole breadth of work behind them, which is why they're highly documented. Now Apollo comes with all these commands. Got notable features: P2P communication, credential tracking and manipulation, unmanaged P.NET assembly and PowerShell script execution, user exploitation suite. Got SOC 5 support as well, and there's many commands here, so good stuff. Let's carry on with Apollo. Now here, the output shellcode executable or dynamic loader. Now we can output it as an exe or a shellcode. Let's keep it nice and basic, exe for this instance. List of commands. Now this is quite interesting. Now it comes preloaded with commands like download, load, ps, run, shell, upload. You can also tick and drag over more commands before you go next and try to build this bad boy out. Is there any other commands that we want? Print working directory, of course. Want to see that. Got remove, screenshots, always nice to have. Who am I, the Jackie Chan boy back in action? I think that's it for now. I'll keep those ones in. Now here's all of the ones that we are going to have. My bad, I think I just brought them all in rather than just the ones I ticked. Never mind, I'll build out a bigger payload. This might take a bit of time to compile because of all the commands, but the show must go on. We'll hit next. Now we want to select the C2 framework. We can include that. Just need to grab our IP address before we crack on. Okay, with that we'll leave the default parameters in. The callback will be on port 80. Call jitter percentage, that's fine. Name of the query parameter to get request will be Q, that's fine. It's quite interesting here. If you got proxies, you can actually put them in here. Very nice. And you even got a kill date in terms of when this agent goes dead. So let's go next. Now we can even name it. Cool. So I'm going to call it ACEXE. Create the payload. Can kiss my ass, of course, as a description. Now here, creating the payload. Nice little UI for it as well. Right now, as you can see, that is baked and ready. So if we go into details, we get an overview of exactly what's going on here. All the agent details, lovely jubbly. All the documentation for each command. Mimikat's here. Great stuff, love it already. Obviously you get a highlight of the agent. You've got the C2 status here. We can literally just download this now. Not too bad in terms of size either. 1.3 meg. Find that. Minimize this bad boy. See, we're now here. We can see it's in downloads. Now what we want to do is use updog, and that's how we're going to get it onto the Windows host. Now we can see downloads. Obviously we can just bring up Opdog here. Now, as mentioned before, Opdog will give us a development server that we can host across a network, in this instance for our Windows host. So literally we can just copy that bad boy. There we have it. We have the Ace exe. Let's download that bad boy. Again, we get the small notification. We'll keep it as usual. Open that up. Oh, now this time the AV actually activated and it caught it. Now with Primus, as we saw previously, the virus wasn't detected at all. In this instance, the C2 agent has been detected by Windows Defender. So sad times right now. So it's brought it up as a severe warning. Yeah, show me it right now. So it's come under a virtual MSIL Mapaz A. There we have it. This program is used to create viruses, worms, or other malware. So it's definitely been registered by Defender at some point and it's been picked up. Now let's try to deploy a different type of approach here, a different agent, if you will. That one got detected. Now, can we obfuscate this a bit more is another question. Maybe it's got too many commands embedded in it. That could be a problem. So if we go into payloads again, and let's generate a new one, maybe not so dense. Literally just the ones that I wanted last time this time. And that's it. Yes. HTTP, we'll have that. Forgot the IP address once more. Now let's download the new payload, which is ACE2. Now let's go back onto the Windows box. Bring that up. Refresh. And we have ACE2 here. Let's download this. Keep it. Yes. Keep it anyway. Sad times again for Mythic and Apollo. It's being caught out. Like I said, we have many agents we could test. I probably don't have enough video time to test them. That's not to discount Mythic at this point. It's just that Apollo's agents are being detected, but the show must go on. So for showcase, I will disable Defender and see what this can do once it runs. All right, let's try this again. We'll do ACE1 actually, because that one had more stuff to offer anyway. So let's keep that. Yes, keep it anyway. Now the file is live. Run that. Yes. Run it. Now we have this black screen firing up. And what do we get on the agent side of things? We have a new callback. Nice little alert right there. So active callbacks. Here we have it now. Now we can see Kiss My Ass is kissing someone's ass right now on desktop 307. And from here, you can see right now we got the PID ID, which give us a kill command if needed. We got this last check-in, which is essentially a active beacon. And think of this as a master-slave relationship. The central command console here being the master and the agent being the slave. This communicates and checks in a certain time lapsing period to make sure it's still alive. Now then, if we interact with this bad boy and hit the Jackie Chan, who am I? So now you can see here the command gets processed. The agent is processing the command. And now when he does report back in, it's going to report it back, and here we have it. So it's game over if we were able to get the agent on the host in that instance, and we have full control over the agent and all the commands that we deployed it on. Super slick framework, absolutely love it. It's one of the best, if not the best, I've reviewed, and that's not to do a disservice to the others. If anything, it's for them to look at what's happening here and upgrade and up level themselves, really. Now if we see what other commands we can run just for fun, because at this point I want to see what this can do. We do have screenshot, and I'd like to see how that actually looks. So let's hit screenshot. So screenshot's been run. Now the agent processes the command once again. Oh, there we have it. It doesn't come under the callback section, it comes under the screenshot section. But there we have it. It's a nice little screenshot. You can comment on that screenshot as well, which is sick. You can tag it and add more actions. It just gives you so much information. It's unbelievable. I've not seen this much information being given within a C2 to date. It's just sick. Now I'm going to leave it there. I've seen enough in terms of what this can do. In my own time, I'm going to look into every agent from Mythic to Athena and everything else.
Conclusion. Now for me, Mythic's strengths lie in its meticulous data modeling, tracking and analysis. It's just a work of art, if you will. Crafting what I might say are payloads and executing them as and when required. Every action can be logged, offering a transparent operation overview of what is actually happening. Now this transparency answers some critical questions in terms of aids of operation security and ensures efficient tracking of network activities. Moreover, with integrated mapping, operations can tag commands. You can also utilize the MITRE framework, which can help you offer strategic overviews of any operations that might be happening. Now this combined with a global search capabilities that we can see on deck and the hella detailed documentation just makes this an overall red team powerhouse. Overall, for me, this one really does stand out. I hope the agents and the community are still being developed. It looks to me that there's no shortcomings in terms of assets and development that's happening here. It's a blend of technical prowess and uses centric design, which makes it much easier to explore and deploy and understand the small nuances that I've seen with these other C2 frameworks. Now this wasn't a mega deep dive here, but we did explore the capabilities and also what this can do from a technical perspective. Until the next time, don't forget to subscribe and like and stay safe in the cyberspace. Peace out.